We're rolling.
Fantastic. Okay, well, look, whenever you like.
All right. We'll do it. We're ready. Ready?
That's a song called Movement and Location. It's track 1 on the latest album from the Punch Brothers, Who's Feeling Young Now. But that was them doing it live in the Music Show studio. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks so much for having us.
Well, thanks for coming in. Look, the more I listen to you, the less the word bluegrass seems to have any meaning for me, particularly in the context of this band.
Well, I think that's astute. We feel like we look an awful lot like a bluegrass band. Appearances.
You're holding the right instruments.
Are bluegrassy. But yeah, as you kind of dive into things, we'd like to think that basically we're a bluegrass band, aesthetically speaking, but that we're a band first and foremost that exists now, that's trying to do something new.
Yes, and you put this new CD on. It's on the Nonesuch label. The first 20 seconds of what you've just done might be the new Steve Reich piece.
Strong, I like it.
But then other things start to happen, of course. You embrace an enormous amount of music, don't you? And I mean, does the word style mean anything really in the musical sense to you?
When people talk about style, they're largely referring to kind of the texture of something. And I mean, as far as like the texture of the thing, I mean, it's a texture that one rightly associates with bluegrass music. It's important to note that bluegrass is quite young and by no means, a crystallized form of music. It only really kind of came to be what we think of it as now in the early 50s, with Bill Monroe and when Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs were in his band. That's kind of the sound that we associate with that. And that wasn't long ago, and it was a very short period of time.
Maybe this was where Bill Monroe was headed.
I mean, we'd like to think that we're emulating his spirit of creativity rather than, the actual notes that he ended up playing.
Yes.
This group of 5 instruments is something that we've gravitated towards since we were little. All of us have been in bands that featured these 5 instruments before, and it's what we're comfortable with. But by no means do we intend to sort of innovate within, a small pool of influences.
Maybe for the benefit of our listeners, I should have actually said what the instruments were and who was playing them. So let me do that now. Chris Thiele, who is speaking, was playing mandolin and doing the singing. Gabe Witcher was playing fiddle. Noam Pikelny playing banjo. Chris Eldridge guitar and Paul Coet bass. So that is a pretty standard bluegrass lineup, I
Totally
suppose,
standard.
isn't it? Yeah.
Couldn't be more.
Yeah. And yet people who go to your gigs are quite likely to hear you play Bach or Mozart.
That does happen on occasion. It depends on where we are. Like in Melbourne, played a beautiful recital hall. It would have been nice to bust one of those out. We didn't. But tonight we're at the Basement here in Sydney, and I think it's going to be more likely that something like Radiohead or
yeah, the Melbourne Recital Hall gets Bach all the time. They didn't need any more. But the Basement hasn't had Bach for quite a while.
That's true. We'll see. We'll take that into account.
Seriously, though, when you choose a piece like the finale of the third Brandenburg Concerto, I mean, you choose it because it fits your instruments, that there is something about that kind of, that sort of sewing machine quality to the music that fits on a mandolin and fiddle and banjo in particular.
When we play something like a movement from the Brandenburg Concerto, we're able to offer something with that music that you wouldn't actually be able to get hearing it in the traditional ensemble. And these instruments are very staccato and they're very rhythmic. And I think that's one of the kind of main kind of things about the driving rhythms of traditional bluegrass. So when we take a piece of music, for example, Bach, the Brandenburg, and play it on these instruments, I think it sheds some light on the piece that you couldn't necessarily stumble upon as easily on the traditional instruments that it was actually written for. There's this incredible array of music that's written for violin that you could kind of take and place onto these instruments. It's a way of really expanding your knowledge on these instruments. And so I think it started as something that each one of us had been doing individually in our practice rooms, something not for performance initially. It was just a way of kind of breaking outside of the box. And then finally, as this band came together, we thought, hey, why don't we actually see what happens when we put this together?
Yeah, well, it works very well indeed. But there are, as you say, there's something about the original music that makes it fit on these instruments. I mean, we're not going to hear Punch Brothers, the Wagner album soon, are we? So
Who told you?
Sorry, not Nonesuch, you've got that under wraps. You also do Radiohead songs and Beatles songs, but let's talk about your writing. The songs tend to be attributed to Punch Brothers. So how does that work?
Well, musically speaking, it's a pretty free flowing collaboration. The the lead idea can come from any one of the five of us, and then we sort of develop it together. Lyrically speaking, I tend to do most of that, but I have a four-headed filter here that I put everything through, and any one of the guys has veto power with any of the lyrics that I write. So that part ends up being collaborative as well. I think the nice thing, particularly with the last record, is I feel like we're starting to discover a voice, a compositional voice that's sincere and natural, coming from each one of us, and I think that's something that we're going to take into the next project as well, is really trying to find a voice that serves everyone's needs and that satisfies everyone's musical goals. That's what being a band is about. I think it's in the same way that in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, you hope that you end up experiencing more of the world as the result of sort of linking yourself with another person's world. And I think that's what musicians are after in collaboration, is that you get to experience more of the musical world if you really allow yourselves to see it through someone else's eyes.
Yes, yeah. There's a melodic distinction, I think, on this latest album.
Yes, I'm glad you think so.
I do. I mean, well, the song you just sang, for instance. That's not a. How can I say? I mean, it's an unusual tune. It's perhaps the best way of putting it. And Soon or Never, which is the other song I especially like from that melodic point of view, is very unpredictable, very expressive.
Thank you. The Soon or Never is maybe my favorite melody on the record. Although I also think Movement and Location is interesting, just like in that it keeps growing throughout the course of the repetition. Like the melody doesn't repeat verbatim ever. It keeps sort of adding a little bit each time you go through that melody. The da 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 da. Every time that thing happens, you get a little bit more.
A bit more, yeah.
We're always poking around for things that are satisfying and surprising in equal measure. I think that the feeling you want is, that kind of smacking your forehead, going, of course. That's the feeling that I'm always looking for from art, any art, or even from food or cocktails or coffee or wine or anything. It's like that's the feeling I want, is that. Smack my forehead and go, of course.
Something that seems obvious, but you'd never thought of it before.
You'd never thought of it, yeah.
When you begin writing, you've got this fantastic sonic palette. I mean, just the instruments themselves must generate a lot of ideas. But I mean, we were talking about melody. Do tunes arrive unbidden in your heads? And then you fit them to these instruments, or is there something about that propulsive sound that you had going just before that can generate a melody?
Right. I think at best that stuff is happening sort of like you're saying, unbidden, and can come sort of arrive in your head and be something that's sung, or something that's idiomatic to an instrument. I feel like too often composition of any kind is too much one or the other. A lot of times I think pop music comes out kind of so naturally that it ends up like it's all heart, it's all body, and no head at all, and so it doesn't hold up well under cerebral scrutiny. But then music that you're just thinking about can really leave you flat. It might not move you. You might just be thinking about it and not actually feeling anything. And so we're again trying to strike a balance. That song was funny in that the Movement and Location song, the song we just played, was funny in that it came from a really esoteric idea, just this thing that we only barely hint at during the course of the song. So almost like a harmonic motif that's like really only notable in its rhythmic oddity. It's a strange thing, and but Critter and Paul ended up putting this, the pulsating kind of get your body happening thing to it, like this 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So it shows itself to actually be in common time. But then we just took that right out and kind of had me doing like a a drum and bass groove to it. And then we got Gabbers and Pickles here to do the flowing line, to kind of try and hypnotize people a little bit. And then put the original melody that had happened with that funny little motif on it. Da 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 da. So that's kind of in rapid fire. That's how that happens.
But you're building layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is how something that can be the original idea can actually become completely subjective to an idea that was maybe originally like happened later, but ends up being the primary idea.
Yes. So you don't necessarily know what you're doing when you start. You find out by doing it. But when it comes to a 42-minute 4-movement piece, which you have on your first album, that suggests quite a lot of paper involved.
Sheets and sheets.
Yes.
Sheets and sheets.
You don't get one of those without planning it.
That was one of those things that happened largely in the head, and then we tried to inject some heart and body into it afterwards, and got some of the way there. I'm proud of that piece, but I also think that what we're doing now is more sincere coming from us as a band. That was my piece, and it was sincere, certainly coming from me, and I think everyone else found ways to really deliver it as if it were their own, and certain parts of it are improvised, so are absolutely their own. But I think as writers, what we're doing now is people are able to kind of sink into it a little bit more thoroughly,
and a whole lot less paper. We're much more eco-friendly now.
Right. You're going to do another song for us. This Girl, which I must say, when I looked at this, I thought it's another Beatles cover, but it's not, is it? It's a different This Girl. It's your This Girl.
That's right.
What can you tell us about this before you do it?
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned the Beatles. I think that some of the devices would be at home on a Sgt. Pepper's ish thing, or tried to tap into some of the sunny Beach Boys vocal harmonies. Again, another sort of essay on trying to find things that sound like they've been there your whole life, but you just didn't quite know it.
Well, thank you very much, all of you, for coming in. It's been wonderful having you here. Chris Thiele, mandolin; Gay Witcher, fiddle; Noam Pikelny, banjo; Chris Eldridge, guitar; and Paul Coet, bass. And this is another song. This is the second track, in fact, from the new album, which is called Who's Feeling Young Now. This Girl, Punch Brothers.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3. Father, well, it's been a long time now. What you doing? How is your son? How are his children? I bet they're just like me. You must be tired of hearing prayers like mine. No need to answer. Nobody likes knowing it favors all they'll ever be. But there's this girl, and I'd be the happiest backslider in the world if you would tell her it's your will for us to be together. Father, will you see me try to make her love me? I'd sell my soul to hear the one thing she thinks she never said. But now it's Sunday, and her pretty voice is rising up to ask you, like I once did, like I'm about to, if you could show her the way. 'Cause there's this girl, and I'd be the world to expect from people, but I think you might be pleasantly surprised to see what this girl will bring out of me. There's this girl, this girl, this girl, this girl, this girl, and I'd be the happiest backslider in the world if you would tell her it's your will for us to be together. I would never bother you again unless you want me to. Hell, we'll just both hang out with you in heaven when we die.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
That
you
was
so much.
fantastic.
Thanks for having us.
Mighty fun. Oh, it's so nice to actually talk to someone about music.
That was really nice.
RN, your world unfolding.